Good morning. Welcome to a Sunday edition of Your Father's Story. So today's question, miss, I thought was pretty interesting. And, like I said, when I answer these questions, I just go through the list and kind of whatever sticks out to me that, maybe I'm thinking about or thought about recently. That's how I address them. And so this is something that, I've dealt with somewhat recently, and sometimes it does occasionally pop up, and we'll kind of go through it. So anyways, the question for today is, what should I do if I can't forgive someone? And I think that's that's a pretty deep question. Like what happens when someone does something that's unforgivable, so to speak, in your mind or in your opinion. And, this has happened, there's been certain times in my life where, I have people in my life maybe that I care about, or even maybe that I don't even know, that do things that affect me at a level to what I deem unforgivable. Well, first off, if you can't forgive someone, you have to realize that you're holding on to that energy, right? Because definitely when something is unforgivable, so to speak, there is definitely a negative connotation that's associated with that, negative emotions, and obviously we're deeply hurt by whatever the unforgivable act is. But we also have to realize that whatever was considered unforgivable was our own expectations of that person's conduct in that particular situation. And certainly, I'm trying to be a little bit broad because there's so many things that we can say that's unforgivable. That's a really kind of subjective opinion, what we deem unforgivable. But then there's also objectionable things, like when someone commits a really heinous evil act, right? So it can go from really minimal, like, oh my God, why did, you didn't call me on my birthday, that's unforgivable. Someone could like literally feel that way. And then obviously, like I talked about, heinous acts, which, we can go all the way to acts of evil. Regardless of what someone else's actions, the imprint that they put on us, at the end of the day, we're still here. We're still the ones who have to live with ourselves. We're the ones who have to wake up in the morning and go throughout our day and interact with other people and with this world and with ourselves. And so what I was getting at prior to this is we're the ones who are holding on to that energy, okay? Because if it's negative, right, because we're very upset, if you carry that burden around with you and then you go and interact with other people, with this world, with ourselves, what do you think that that's going to do to you? Just as a person, what is that kind of negative energy going to do to you? Well, first off, it's going to be absolutely toxic. Like that's for sure. When you have this kind of negativity that you let define your aura, what do you think that you're going to give off to the world, right? Probably not great things. And when you're giving off these negative emotions, this negative aura, what you give out to the world is what you receive. And so it becomes what's called a positive feedback loop, right? Which sounds kind of self-defeating. Like we're talking about negative things, but you're saying a positive feedback loop? What is that? A positive feedback loop means that when something happens in one part of the loop, so to speak, it starts to feed another part of the loop. And so when that event happens, it comes back around. Oh, I feel really shitty and I'm going to be upset today. And then something else happens. Oh, this person cut me off in traffic, or this person didn't call me on my birthday. Okay, I feel shitty today. And then the cycle repeats. So that's called positive feedback loop, which means that the loop never gets broken. It continuously cycles. And so in essence, when you can't forgive someone, what you're creating is this positive feedback loop that is filled with negativity, and that in all reality is nothing but a burden to your soul. And I've certainly dealt with this over the years. Obviously I'm, a bit older now. I have a little bit more experience, but I did let this happen to me for multiple, probably even years of my life. Like, I held on to negativity and bullshit and blamed, the other person or these external, factors or influences, and just blame, instead of what the ultimate resolution is to come back to yourself and hold yourself accountable, like, for what your part was in that particular situation, maybe for whatever your actions were, for your thoughts and your expectations. And when you do that, you can also forgive yourself, right? So at the end of the day, it's not about forgiving someone else. It's about forgiving yourself for where you're at, and accepting that, and accepting the other person wherever they're at, because it's insane. It's absolutely insane to think that anyone else in this world would have the exact same thoughts, expectations, do the same actions as we would do them. That's absolutely insane to think that would happen. So in essence, you should you should almost anticipate that no one is going to be on the same level as you ever, right? So just drop the expectations. It's really easy to say and 10 times harder to accept. But I think when you start to take on that mindset and think about how you can adopt this, it's a process. It really is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Like I said, there's been multiple instances in my life where I've been really upset with this other person, through relationships that have ended, both, romantic relationships as well as, personal friendships and whatnot. And unfortunately, that has happened in my life a number of times. And, initially, probably when I was younger, I'd blame the other person. Oh, she was such an asshole, and I can't believe she did that to me. And, being really upset with this person, when at the end of the day, it wasn't their fault. It was nobody's fault. It was just that they took an action that did not resonate with me at that particular point in time. And I also had an expectation of how that person would treat me or would act. And that's bullshit in retrospect, right? But either way, I held on to that. I dealt with that probably for years out of my life. And honestly, it was so toxic to my soul, and that contributed, just like I said earlier, I was not I wasn't happy, you know, and that unhappiness was with myself, right? I didn't realize that, but it was actually with myself. And I think, you know, after kind of this journey of, you know, self-discovery, self-improvement, and learning things about the world, you know, reading a lot of just really good self-help books, but also doing the work, you know, like I talked about, like doing the things that are meaningful to me, spending time with my loved ones, strenuous workouts, journaling, meditating. Like through this process of self-discovery, I have found that like if you if you really want to be healthy, you have to not only forgive other people for their acts, but you also have to forgive yourself, right? And so that's something that I've really come to accept. I mean, I'm not saying that I've been like this for an extended amount of time. I mean, this is really a realization that I've come to grips with over probably the past couple of years, and really kind of addressed like this specific subject about forgiveness. Because I think I had, you know, maybe a few years back, I had gotten better. Like when I started going through this journey, I had started getting better about just forgiving myself, right? Which was really like, that was a big jump for me personally, is just forgiving myself for my acts. Because, you know, like I'm not perfect. I've done stupid shit, mean shit. I've been an asshole to people. I've done things that, you know, at that point in time I even deemed unforgivable, you know, and that brought me down. Like that brought me down to another level. And so if I can't forgive someone else for things that they've done, how can I forgive myself for the shit that I've done to other people? Right? So in essence, like you have to forgive people for your own good. You know, you really do. And I think when you do that, I mean, obviously it would be best to let these people know, like authentically, that you've forgiven them. I think that like it literally like makes the world a better place. That's super positive energy that you can give to this person. Like, hey, you know, like you did something that really hurt me. Like that really hurt me. But you know what? That's where you're at. Maybe it was my fault for having these expectations of you. So I'm going to take responsibility for where I'm at, where my mind's at. And I forgive you, and I'm sorry also for my part that I played in this. And so I think putting that out there to the world, to whoever is, you know, forsaken you, I think is just how we all need to be. Just not even how we need to be, but it's what makes the world a much brighter, cheerful place. And I think when you begin to kind of go down that journey, like that also becomes a positive feedback loop, positive feedback loop, right? It's putting positive energy out there, like, okay, we're not perfect. Let's move forward. I genuinely forgive you. Because when that happens, I think that the other person, the other soul, feels that energy, gets on that same frequency level. And maybe the next time around when someone does an unforgivable act to them, they're probably much more apt to forgive that person in that particular situation because they saw or they felt the kindness and the authenticity that you showed to them when they did something maybe that wasn't the best thing to you. But you know, sometimes There's also the fact at the end of the day, sometimes, we do acts that we feel really horrible about, and for whatever reason we cannot like verbally tell this person or let this person know that we forgive them. There's so many different scenarios. Maybe that person's already passed away and we're still carrying that negativity because we never got a chance to say, I'm sorry, I forgive you, whatever the case is. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to forgive yourself and to give yourself grace and to know that you're not perfect and that right now is all that you have. So be present, give yourself to every moment, and just let the world be how it is. Okay. Well, I don't want to go too off the rails, but in essence, that's my thoughts about forgiveness, about the importance of forgiveness, and what it means to me. So, that felt good. That felt good to talk about. Yeah, I haven't like verbalized that. I've written it down for sure, like in my journal, but I've never verbalized that. So it's nice to kind of get it out there to the world, talk about it with you. Ooh, it's warm. So anyhow, I hope that was a great video. I hope maybe it enlightened you about a little bit about your dad, maybe made you think about your own personal kind of mindset and thoughts, and I hope it was generally a good thing to hear me talk about. So anyhow, love you, kiddo. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.